Hello everyone. Hope everyone's well and got through your first session and no one's ran off, so that's a good start to the day. My name is Eugene McCormick. I'm the Senior Vice President here at Passle, based out of Washington DC, but loving it being in sunny New York with the Passle branding everywhere that I can see. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us. Today's going to be an interactive session. I'm going to introduce Nicole in just a moment, but please jump in, ask questions. We want this to be a conversation, not just a one-way discussion. So, turn to the fabulous lady to my right. I'm really honoured to be joined by Nicole Petrie, and over the last couple of months I've really gotten to know Nicole very well. She is the Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer at Schulte, Roth & Zabel. And honestly, there's nobody better to be joined by on stage.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Nicole has 25 odd years of international experience, including 16 years at KPMG, driving global business development, strategy and transformation. And over the next sort of 30 minutes, we're going to try and uncover a wee bit of Nicole's journey and really focusing in on what I think it's fair to say is your obsession on the firm-client relationship. But before we kick off, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, and it's exciting, and I'm honestly listening to Connor. Anyone could be up here talking today. That's such an impressive group. Yeah. Very seasoned marketing and BD people in the audience. So I hope whatever I talk about, it's tips or my journey, and I'd love to listen to other people's ideas as we kind of mingle through the day, because I think that's really all about that co-creation of ideas in this fabulous group. So please come and talk to me at any point.
I enjoy a look at my own face.
Oh, you are. You look
pearly
terrific.
White. Couple of miles on the clock now. Now we're going to dive straight in.
Okay.
You have a big old chunk of Big Four credibility and international experience. Can you tell us a wee bit about that and actually how you ended up, because you're a new Chief Marketing and Business Development Officer at Schulte.
Yeah.
How did you arrive at that point? And tell us a wee bit about your journey.
Okay, well, I'll try and not bore you with the whole background, but I will start with my first foray into the workforce, which was with Ernst & Young. So I was an auditor. I studied, obviously, accounting, and I did a Japanese major as well, which was kind of exciting. But the whole point of that, I wanted to get in and work with great clients, great people. I was really interested in being in an international kind of arena. I actually don't know even how I was so focused on what I needed at that stage, but that really propelled me forward. I spent a couple of years, once I was qualified as a CPA, a couple of years with investment banks doing finance-related roles. And then I did this pivot. And the pivot was, as you know, when you're young and money talks, a startup recruitment company in Sydney actually said, hey, why don't you come along and set up a recruitment desk for banking? And I was like, sure, that should be easy. And I got in there, and lo and behold, it was a high, what I would call a high performance sales culture. And these people could sell, right? They were unbelievable. They knew how the client journey worked. They knew how to cold call. They were out on the streets. And I was like, okay, got it. And I had a team of, UK-based consultants eating me alive, right? They were my team. So you either sink or swim, and of course I swam, but it took a lot of hard yakka to get there. And what I learned, and then fast forward from that, I went back and I thought, I need to know more about how to build relationships. Because what I saw happening, the magic I saw with these people wasn't just that they knew how to sell. They knew how to build a sense of intimacy with the people that were around them. So a bit of a nerd and a bit of an academic, I went back and did my Masters of Coaching and Psychology. And that really helped me build confidence. It helped me think about not me, but them. And then I went into the Big Four again, and I looked around, I thought, you know what? I was trained as a technical accountant. I have empathy and compassion for these people. Like, they need to kind of lean into this sort of way of working. And so that propelled me into my business development career there at KPMG. You said 16 years. So 10 years in Australia. Did anyone pick the Aussie accent? Yeah. Really? I don't have an accent, do I? Okay. Hijacker. So 10 years in Australia, business development director, client-facing, absolutely loved it. Out working with partners, developing, coaching them. And then I moved into creating a centre of excellence for the firm around client experience. That wasn't really something I'd predicted I'd do, but it was actually what propelled me into doing more transformation work. Because what we were really thinking about, how do we not just get one or two or three client teams along the curve? How do we get the whole firm along the curve? And from that model and from that team that I worked with, that got globalized, which is why I ended up in New York, working in a global role at KPMG. And that global role actually, sales and marketing head globally. But I was really going into countries and working with leaders, small countries, large countries, going, okay, show me what you're doing. Where are you at now? Where do you need to be? What's your vision? So without even realizing it, I started my journey on transformation, and that really propelled me in. I'm going to get to legal.
Yeah.
I was watching legal, and I was fascinated by this pivot that was starting to happen. And there's so many fabulous law firms out there, and a bit intimidating. I had a chat to a couple in Australia, and they're impressive, but I wasn't quite ready. And then when I got to the US and post-COVID, I think how many people reflected on their career during COVID? Yeah, totally. And I was like, got to get off the travel circuit, and I really want a New York-based role. So I found Schulte approached me. Why Schulte when you've got all these fabulous firms? Change of leadership, courage, and curiosity of the leadership team to actually make a change. That was super important for me, but also I would say you would all know this. Transformation, you can't do it unless they're on board. So that got me into a law firm, big-eyed, kind of bright, bushy-tailed, scared as you know what. But people, I can see some faces in the room, really helped me. You guys have been tremendous as a community of CMOs to say, hey, you'll be fine. Yep, we understand you. These things happen. So that's how I ended up in Schulte. Did that answer it?
It did.
Okay.
One thing I actually want to piggyback on is you mentioned there you were trained technically and then you had the sales acumen. Was there a key aha moment along that journey where you thought, the firm-client relationship, this is really important, I can do something here? Yeah. So I was just thinking back, like when I mentioned, the reason why I wanted to tell you about Ernst & Young is even at a baby stage at the beginning of my career, I was pushed out in front of clients, and I realized I really need to know how to do this from a very early stage, and never trained around how to do it, trained how to be a great auditor, which is helpful. Luckily, I was curious, so I'd go and talk to the financial controller, and they'd tell me to go back to the audit room, which was interesting, right? Not the financial controller, but my team members. And so technical, I started realizing, is only going to get me to the table with everyone else. How do I actually compete against people in the marketplace? And then if we fast forward to my business development years at KPMG, having that extra experience with psychology and understanding how people tick, I was like, great, I need to really obsess about my clients. And I actually did. For 8 years, I had a number of clients in my portfolio, and I'd wake up every morning and I'd say, okay, I've got 2 or 3 things. Who needs to know about these? And that was kind of what I lived by, really obsessing about them. Yeah, it's no different to your friendships. You think about your friends every day, don't you? And your family. So your clients are kind of in that orbit, I say, and you can never really obsess more than about that many, maybe. You can have 30 or 40 or 50 clients, but who do you really need to get deep with? So this was my little mantra that I kind of came across. It's a little bit of an American one, really, isn't it? I must have known I was coming here. And I put that up in my office in a number of different places when I was working, and I can't tell you how many people came in and would comment on it. Yeah, Nicole, that's right. That's the way we should be operating with our people, and not just our clients, but I always say the client experience comes from the people experience in an organization. And if you have a toxic experience internally, your people are not going to go on the outside and change. So this is a mantra I love. And then I think fast forward again to being in Schulte. What I like is I get my hands dirty and I get to coach partners and I get to run the team and I do all that sort of fabulous stuff. How many of you kind of work with partners one-on-one like that and actually okay. How many of when they're going out that you just say something simple and they're like, no, I haven't done that? How many of you have you? Therapy to that.
And why do you have that pitch deck 200 pages, and it was almost like I would frisk, not just at Schulte, but KPMG as well, frisk them and go, we haven't even met this person. Why have you got 50-page document. Holy moly, right? And so that to me is really interesting, because for me, they're not even thinking about the person. Where are they? Highly self-orientated. I'm not criticizing them. With compassion, I'm like, it's okay. You don't need to have all the answers today. And so this is a little piece that yes, it says consumer, but have a look. Most of our people go out, hey, I need the pickle relish. We're going to sell you the pickle relish. These people aren't even thinking about that, right? They've got family, they've got career. And eventually the pickle relish might get in there if you actually talk to them about what's going on. Oh, you've just transferred careers and you're in this new role, and oh, what's on your plate, and all of that good stuff. And actually I say to many partners, that's the easier conversation to have, because you're just asking questions and listening,
So being technical just gets you to the table. It gets you into the position to be able to even participate, but then it's all of this stuff to actually get you there. You said something I want to actually hone in on. You said obsessing about the client experience. What does that mean, and actually why does it matter? It sounds simple, but why does it matter?
Well, I'm going to use a slide for this because I'll talk it through, but I think if you look at all the great brands out there, the client experience is what's actually driving them forward. And, companies focused on CX, as I call it, outperform the market without think of the brands that you buy, right? And it's a key focus. People are like, I've got to be super technical and I've got to have the right price. Yes, but if you do this, they forget about that. And clients pay more. So I was thinking about this coming in. Where do I pay more? And I was on the train this morning. I thought, this is maybe a silly example. Grocery shopping, right? There are cheap grocery stores and I go to them because whoop, whoop. And then every now and then I'm just feeling exhausted on a Saturday. And I think I might go to Whole Foods. And they pack my bag for me. Hey, I see nodding. And they're nice and they smile at me and have a great day. And I'm like, oh, I feel good when I come out of Whole Foods. But I paid it, a little bit more. So that's sort of the really simple adage there, that people are willing to pay a lot more if they can. And then I think fast forwarding, Eugene, what's kind of the science behind this? So I had the privilege when I worked at KPMG to actually spend time and energy with what they called their global client experience team. Wow, they were super smart. And they were consulting to our clients around client experience. And they'd worked with, research from Forrester and Gartner, and they came up with this, which I've used a lot. And I wanted to share it with you guys here today because it's a really good one when you're working with lawyers to say, you can say, I've come across this research or here's some stuff, but I just want to walk you through this. First of all, personal attention. Client experience, understanding specifically what people need and tailoring it to them is so instrumental, right? VIP service, right? White glove. We do it to our lawyers a lot. And this is also, everything I'm talking about, I think is transferable for the lawyers, but then for the lawyers to do to their clients, right? So as a marketing and BD team, I show this to my team and I say, are you making it easy for them or hard? Are you putting too many barriers in front of them? Your processes, your ways? Same with the lawyers going out to clients. I don't know how easy it is to sign the deal sometimes for our clients. Procurement and loopholes and 6 weeks to get your contract and make it easy. Trustworthiness. That just comes over time. So that's in there because it doesn't happen immediately. Exceeding expectations sounds really obvious, but sometimes when you're busy and you've got lots of clients, that'll do. That doesn't wash when you're doing it. When you're really obsessing about client experience, it's like we've met them where they wanted us to be. What else? Problem resolution. Of course we're solving their problems, but are we really solving the problem that matters the most? And I see that sometimes when we're trying to, as lawyers, sell to a client and get a deal closed and they haven't talked the bigger picture with transformation work, or what else could they be adding on? And that's really what the client's thinking about, but they go in and they just solve a small part of the problem. And then last but not least, empathy and compassion. I was in both sessions actually, I couldn't help myself. But Trish talked about empathy with your team. So who was in the session? Yeah, wasn't that great? She's amazing. And so is Phil. And empathy and compassion, I think through COVID, was really, really interesting. And people that went out and were really hardcore selling just lost the race, because people were, friends were sick and family were dying. And so by going in and actually thinking about the person was really important.
Well, I read this, I think, what am I not doing in my own business relationships, which is probably not good. But I also think a lot of it seems almost obvious. It's like we should all be doing this. It seems very instinctive. Can you tell us a little bit, what do you, having worked in both camps, what do you perceive as the main differences between law firms and that sort of big four consultancy background in how they approach that client relationship?
This is just my opinion, so if anyone feels they want to jump in, but just from my 3 years being in legal, so remember it's only 3 years, but what I saw coming in, particularly in my firm, was sort of that one lawyer, one client model. And that's because our firm didn't have client teams when I came in, so it was probably even a little bit further behind the curve than some of your businesses. But it still happens a lot. And I feel it happens a lot because people are really wedded to, it's my client, right? And the mantra that my managing partner said to me when I came in, Nicole, other than the brand and the rebranding and this, can you stop them saying my client? And it's the firm's client and it's our client. And I was like, isn't that just obvious? And that was the first kind of big learning curve, because being in the Big Four, at least, right back to when I was at Ernst & Young, we had client teams. And it was all about institutionalizing that client relationship. And so I didn't think about it really at that level. And it was around where's the client's agenda, where are the areas of growth, and how do we kind of help them and bring more of the firm across them. And what I saw when I came into legal, I was like, oh, there's a big risk here if people are doing that. Because if that lawyer leaves, boom, that's gone. There's your revenue stream. And I always think of growth and money because that's what our job is, right? Sometimes people think, oh, that's just the BD salesperson's job. No, it's the marketing person as well, and it's the comms person as well. You're all connected to the same strategy, right? So let's help the lawyers not lose money. But that means we have to get that girl or guy and get their self-orientation down. Back to everything kind of loops back. A lot of my models loop back, and it comes back to coaching. So this role of coaching and advising and being those smart kind of people that can sit with them and keep pushing them is such a big deal, I think, in law firms.
I was just about to bring that up, because you're talking about bringing in client teams, you're talking about coaching, you're really talking about cultural change. And there's proper digital transformation. How do you approach this in a law firm, especially, before I say this, especially within an industry which one could argue is quite stuck in its ways?
Stuck. Yeah. I like the stuck. Stuck is something, Eugene, you used it the other day when we were talking about this, but there's quite a few thought leaders that I've been listening to that use it. I call it stuckiness, so stuck. And it's when people get into their comfort zone, and it's not just a person, it's a whole organization. And my organization is a little bit stuck at some points, which is really great, which is why I'm there, but it's hard. And that comfort zone, and actually this might be helpful. This is something that I feel is really helpful personally for your team, coaching lawyers. And when you're in that inertia of being stuck, you're in comfort. And you know what? How good does comfort feel? You got your slippers on, you come, don't have to do anything new today. But it stops innovation, and it stops, basically, curiosity ceases and innovation ceases when you're in that zone. So it's not to say you can't be in that for an organization, but you've got to get out of it. And I think that as the market is changing, you can only just read the paper and get up every day and look at the news and everything that's going on. We are in a big flux. And there's so much going on, cultural differences, the market is changing. I think there's so much in the legal industry, fierce competition. All of this stuff's going on. So if you stay in the comfort zone, what's going to happen? So I love it when we start to move, like we all are with our firms, and move them into that learning and growth zone. There's always going to be a little bit of resistance. No one likes to get out. take their slippers off and whoop, into the learning zone. And again, the model, I think we talked about this, about getting fit. Look how fit he is. So he's gone right into the learning zone and...
Netted that out, yeah.
But the point is that, it's hard to get fit, right? Summer's coming, you want to be down the bathing suit. Can I wear the bikini this year? Or the guy's a little... Maybe not, because we want to be in that comfort zone. We don't want to train. We don't want to go to the gym, whatever it might be, right? And so what's getting in the way? And I use this model, and these are interchangeable. I start to think about, for myself, why am I not getting to the gym as much? Why am I not? It's your mindset. You're in that fixed mindset. I just don't want to do it. I can't do it. And that's what I see when people are in the comfort zone too long. But if you're in the zone of I can do it, what's then getting in the way? Skills. Do I know how to do the weights? Oh, I don't know if I could go to the Pilates class because I've never been on one of those freaky machines. But then I get there and I learn how to do it. And then, mindset's there, skill set's there. I'm rocking. And then you look and you haven't been back to the Pilates studio for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. What's happened then? Discipline. Your friend's not calling you. Maybe if you go with your friend, that discipline of going to Pilates will happen, right? So I'm using a fitness example because it keeps it really simple. Now let's put a lawyer there, right? And you're the coach. And I find this really helpful when I'm working with anybody and I'm sure you guys do this all the time. There's no point throwing them on a sales training program, lawyer, if they're not even wanting to get out the door, and that's mindset. So we have to work on that mindset piece, right? And the best way I think of getting the mindset to the right place is creating a compelling vision with them. What's the purpose? Why do you want to get fit? Let's visualize that. Let's get that up there to the world. Yeah. Great. Now you're on board. So that's the what. That's sort of the why. And then the what is, okay, this is where you are now. Where do you want to be? And then how are you going to do it? So that sort of coaching, I think, is really, really important and helps you move through that model to get to the next place. I'll tell you a point that if I get it back to more of the lawyer sort of Schulte example, client teams. I'll ask again, people running client teams in their firms? Yeah, okay. So we started, it was a bit of a blank slate. And I was like, how can they not be doing client teams? Let's get going. And what was so surprising is they all wanted to do it. I was like, great. And they all turned up to the meeting. Great. And they all started to chit-chat. And I went, oh, okay. And no one was getting out and converting deals and doing stuff. But they wanted to keep turning up and chit-chat. So I thought, you know what I'm going to do? Because I've been at KPMG, I'm going to bring in a great, sophisticated training program that gets, oh dear, car crash. That mindset just switched off, right? Yeah. So that was a failure, but I learned a hell of a lot from it. And that's one of the biggest things I think. If you're going to do transformation work, you've got to fall over, you've got to try. I think, Phil, you talked about just getting on and experimenting, right? You have to do stuff even if you don't know if it's going to work. And that was a great example of, okay, now what we've done, we're still bringing them the core of that training program through bite-sized things, through coaching, through different ways to get their skills up and get their mindset back. Because they actually said, this is not for us, client teams. They're all up for it until we actually started trying to get them to think differently about growing relationships.
I think that's actually quite a nice sort of point, because you have the models, you understand the challenges, and you can assess where the individual attorney or the team, as appropriate, where they are. Do you have any specific sort of techniques or activities or even levers, a bit like technology, to sort of reinforce that behavior and almost scale it across the firm? Because there's only one of you. So how do you scale that sort of change?
Yeah, so I was trying to think of it. I think technology, if you've got it there, then blend it into that sort of whole lever process. I think, I always start with, if they don't, technology comes in, but until you have a really clear vision, that seems to be for me like lever one. And then what's your strategy for that change? And then can you build that out and give people a sense of the 3 horizons? You know, what are they doing now, future, and give that visualization. Piloting and prototyping. You know, I think this whole mass, even in a smaller firm like mine, that mass rollout just doesn't work. And finding your champions of change and really going deep, and this is all the stuff you guys do, but it's just reassuring to kind of sit and reflect on that sometimes, because it really does work. And back to failing, you know, I don't want to fail every day, but you do have to make some mistakes. And I think that mantra, we've tried to talk a lot about that with people that we've been working with. It's okay. And I think we're trying to, you know, innovate again in the thought leadership area with Passle. So that's going to be another, we're not going to fail, but that's going to be another, that conversation. You know, some of the people are scared to do this. And I think the brand is a great example of what we've just done.
I wanted to come on to that because you said you had to slow down to go fast. Can you tell us a little about the Schulte brand, that experimenting?
Yeah, and this is, you know, cone of silence here, right, amongst marketing BD professionals. But when I walked in, they said, "Oh, fantastic, Nicole, your exam question in the interview was, we're a hedge fund firm, but we are much more than that. How can you help us?" And I said, "Well, have you ever worked with a branding agency?" And they went, "No," in 53 years. I was like, okay. And so we started and entertained the branding agency, but they were like, "Can't your team just do all of that?" And I'm like, "No. We've got a great head of brand, but we need to have great partnerships, you know, with specialists that can actually bring us to a world," because my mantra is we are going to be world-class. Doesn't matter what size we are, right? It's a world-class sort of vision we have. And I don't know if any of you saw the Schulte website a while ago. I did when I interviewed. I was like, "Ooh, that looks like an old-fashioned law firm. Great, let's get in there." And social, there really wasn't any social. And there's so many things that just needed to be brought up to that next level. And so the branding was, again, set the vision, get leadership aligned. And we had a great buy-in from a governance group, and we picked different partners to be on that journey with us, my team, but also the branding agency. We handpicked them. They're terrific. Their name is Agenda, if you want to know. They're a terrific group, passionate, energized. And I think that's part of that formula as well. Everyone has to be into it. And that's where we started. And we just methodically slowed down, took the temperature, and we talked to loads of clients. Yeah, loads of clients. And the clients actually loved the whole process. They were like, "Can you tell us when you get to this bit? Because we'd really like to be involved." I was like, "Look at that." You know, they were actually fearful to go to the clients and talk about it. And they told us, you know, "You need to be talking like this." So we did the full Monty. We did the brand messaging, which informed our brand identity, which then informed our values and kind of bubbled up then our website. So it took us about 1.5 years to go end to end, which my team said was really fast, and they kind of looked at me. And we slowed down a little bit. But once we got going, it had so much inertia and energy from everyone in the firm. We had brand champions across the firm and so forth. So this is a little bit of a slide. That was the before and the after, and it probably still doesn't do it justice, but the before was lots of our people kind of hanging out and everything was blue, and that's probably even some better pages. You couldn't navigate through anything. It was like static, as opposed to the new website, which has very much that omni-channel feel, very fresh, very alive, matches our social, connects back to, you know, the website is, you know, a breath of fresh air compared to where it was a pain to go through all the content and really get people aligned, but we got there.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, and I want to not just talk about all the good things. I want to be a bit annoying and play the devil's advocate, as my colleagues know all too well. Law firms are pretty successful. They've been around for a minute or two, and they seem to be doing quite well. Why do they need to change? You've talked about the opportunity to change, but are they not just okay, just keep trundling along, doing as they're doing?
I don't know. I want to ask the audience. What do you guys think? No?
Why?
Well, see, I think there are so many, our clients, again, our clients where they are, we talked about that in a previous session. And my firm specifically, we have a lot of clients. We're not staying out and thinking differently.
Oh, I thought I was actually loud enough. If we're not thinking differently about how we continue to meet them where they are and continue to elevate the way we deliver service. And I love what you talked, Nicole, about that empathy and connecting the dots. And I think that you have lawyers who do it phenomenally, and there are some that are still a little too book smart and not people smart. So we have to continue to evolve because our clients are, and the industries are. You think about the industries we're looking at today, very different than even 10, 15, 20 years ago.
She just answered the question. Fantastic. Sorry, I don't know your name. What's your...
Oh, I'm Kelly McKinnon with Get It Done.
Kelly, I haven't got my glasses. So sorry, so far away. So Kelly nailed it. And I like to use this. Have a look at this. Oh, what was happening, right? It's just so true. Like we think everything, we're not ready for that. Everything's going to be the same. Things are changing. It's sort of like you've got to be not in that comfort zone, right? And outside of that. And I think we've got to be future-proofing our firms and building firms of the future, is a much more energized stance to be in as we move forward. And otherwise, I think it's the biggest, standing still is the fastest way of moving backwards in this rapidly changing world. I was at a Gartner conference last week and I stole a couple of these slides from them. This is what they're talking about. They're talking about marketing and business development. It's the age of disruption, obviously in the environment with geopolitical issues going on. It's also for us. We can't keep retrofitting the house, or redesigning the house. We have to get out and build a new one. And that's where we're going.
Just to continue on the theme of the devil's advocate, it's hard to walk into a room full of millionaires and tell them they're doing it wrong. What have been the main obstacles that you, in your role at Schulte, have had to overcome and changing that mindset and philosophy?
Yeah, and that's such a great question as well, because often you sit there and you think, do they really care? Like when you're making X million dollars, do they really need to, be client-centric and do all this sort of stuff? But it's interesting, they forget about the money that they're making sometimes, and they really do want to be impressive in front of their clients. So I think meet them where they're at is really, you cannot push too hard, but you have to meet them where they're at. I talk about listening with the heart. There's so many different levels of listening. You think you're listening, but are you really listening to them and hearing what they're not saying? And that's when, remember the diagram with mindset, skill set, discipline, when you really listen and you have that mental model, you know where the issue is, and then you can help them, Tailor prototype. We talked about how do we tailor, how do we prototype. I really am a big believer in positive progress. So as soon as there's little nuggets that you're, show the lawyer, like, oh, good, look. And it's not ego boost. It is a little bit of an ego boost, but they need to understand how they're, moving along. And again, not being afraid to fail. So there's sort of some of the nuggets. I think the thing also is to have a great team. So this is not just my team. This is the branding team, my team. This was last week. We won something called the Global ACE Awards, which is in B2B, best of the best sort of B2B creatives. And I was so proud of the team. Remember, I talked about being world-class. We had a very small kind of agency. They were up against Ogilvy and all these people. So I'm sending that message because, again, back to the one I heard next door about, you're only as good as the team. Yeah. And so bringing them along the journey is really, really important.
Well, it's almost like a nice place to wrap it up, but 25 years experience, it's quite hard to distill it down.
Stop saying that.
Two and a half years experience. It's hard to distill down. Is there one key bit of advice, one thing you would encourage the audience to go out and say, try this or do this today, just to really improve that firm client relationship?
Relationships, yeah. I back to listen. Listen with your heart. Be very curious, and I think lower your self-orientation, because that just, we all have ego. We all do. We love it. Look at my picture up there. Have you seen it today? But we all have an ego, and you really have to work on it and bring that down so that you can listen and ask really good questions and be really curious.
Smashing. Does anyone have any questions for Nicole? Anything she's covered? Well, she must have done a very good job.
Okay.
Big round of applause, please, for
Thank
Nicole
you.
Petrie.